The relationship between Sidious and his apprentice is a very complicated one to say the least. After the rise of the Empire, a father-son dynamic between the two of them morphed into something radically different. While still in the role of being his master and mentor, it is known that Sidious heavily abused Vader on many levels, apparently seeming to make his life harder at just about every turn, while finding ways to subtly insult him every time they encountered one another. Beyond this, Sidious was constantly testing Vader's loyalty and doing things to put Vader in fights for his life. And of course, Vader deeply desired to overthrow and kill Palpatine for all of this. But today, we ask one simple question. It couldn't have been all bad, right? Vader had to have some reason why he stayed with Palpatine and continued to put up with all of this. Being friends with the most powerful man in the galaxy at the time had to have at least had some benefit. In today's Holocron, we are going to be highlighting a different aspect of Vader and Sidious's relationship to see exactly why Vader continued to stay with him and remained so loyal, what all benefits he gained as both an enforcer to the Emperor and apprentice to the Lord of the Sith, and to discover the truth of their relationship. Welcome, Acolytes, to the Archives. Let us begin, and let us analyze why Vader stayed so loyal to such an abusive master. The first benefit to being Palpatine's apprentice was the fact that Vader had the ear of the Emperor. Sidious was by far the most powerful and influential person in the entire galaxy. His rulings were absolute, and there was no council, no legislation, or any senate that could stifle or delay any of his rulings, especially within the ranks of the Imperial military. For a time, Sidious had to work around the Imperial Senate on matters concerning the Imperial public, but when it came to the military and the Navy, everyone was directly beholden to his will. This was good for Vader, because the armed forces were the only branch of the Empire that Vader really had anything to do with. Greedy governors and moffs were of course a thorn in Vader's side, but for the vast majority of the Empire's 24-year-long lifespan, they had to stay out of his way. The hierarchy was an extremely competitive environment, one where every leader and high-ranking officer was constantly vying for more power. They were willing to play political games and backstab anyone they needed to ascend to corporate and military ladders. But the only person that was untouchable to all of this was Darth Vader. While Imperial elites had to spend their entire lives bending over backwards in order to curry a small amount of favor from the Emperor, Vader just had that favor as a basic right. At least most of the time he did. Many people knew Palpatine as the Emperor, but Vader knew Palpatine as a Sith Master. That relationship dynamic puts them on a completely different level that is totally unreachable by anybody else. Even though Grand Moff Tarkin looked as though he could have threatened Vader's position as Palpatine's number 2, it was never a real concern. Palpatine allowed their competition to go on for a while, mostly because it simply amused him, and it pushed them both to do their jobs better. But when it came down to the wire, if someone got in Vader's path, the Dark Lord had the ultimate trump card and could simply bring his case to Palpatine. And 9 out of 10 times, Sidious passes judgment in Vader's favor, pardoning any ulterior motives that the Emperor may have in the situation. The second benefit Vader enjoys is very simple. He was denied almost nothing he ever desired. While Vader wasn't a materialistic individual, he ironically could only choose from the best of the galaxy and what it had to offer. If he needed a place to hang his armor for a while, it was an exclusive penthouse suite on Coruscant, or it was an entire castle on either Vajun or Mustafar. Vader had a bacta-tank and a meditation chamber in every residence and ship that he owned, and when the Super Star Destroyers became available, Vader got first pick. Of course, in canon he had to earn this, but he still had the priority when it came to ship repairs, restocks, and refuels on any vessel under his command. This meant that his resources were always in top condition. This allowed Vader to act as efficiently as possible while enjoying the luxury of no weight. His personal cybernetics may have been junk, but if he so wanted, he could have easily moved to a new suit. We've spoken before about the reasons why he didn't, but the point is, if he had wanted to, he could have. And just like Palpatine, money was a practically non-existent factor in Vader's life. He had absolutely no use for credits, and if he did, he wasn't the one paying. State-of-the-art Imperial technology was his without a credit chip, which meant that his TIE Advanced always had the finest material for tune-ups. Vader's life inside of his suit may have been a hell, but at least he didn't have to worry about navigating many of the average inconveniences of everyday life. And now we get into the third benefit. Vader had the unwavering fear and respect of everyone around him. This undoubtedly fulfilled one of Jedi Anakin's deepest desires. Ever since he was brought to the Jedi Temple, he suffered constant disrespect by many Jedi around him, whether it was his peers, the Jedi Council, Windu specifically, constantly admonishing him. Anakin actually enjoyed being on the front lines during the Clone Wars because he could just let loose and be himself. There was no council. He got to be as violent as he wanted with the droids, and he led all of his friends in the 501st to victory through unconventional methods. And because he actually cared about the lives of his troopers, Anakin had the clones' undying loyalty and their respect. But of course, that changed anytime he was around some of the other Jedi, who Anakin thought were impossible to please. When it came to the Empire though, Vader didn't have to do much to gain the respect of those that surrounded him. He commanded it. If he didn't have their respect, then he would settle with fear. In Vader's eyes, they were one and the same. Very few restrictions were placed on what Vader could do to underlings who ever displeased him. Even though Palpatine was frustrated with how Vader constantly killed his officers, the Dark Lord was still mostly allowed to do it at his own discretion. Being number 2 in the entire Empire means that Vader says jump, and even admirals ask how high. It was a dreadful thing to be disobedient to Lord Vader, as it literally meant you were willing to exchange your life for your pride. When Vader walked down a corridor, everyone got out of his way. Vader didn't even have to lock the door to the meditation chamber in his Star Destroyer. No one would be so stupid enough to barge in on him unless they had permission. What this also means was that whenever Vader needed resources, he could easily pull the strings to get it. Vader's words was often only times superseded by the Emperor's, and if Vader needed a fleet around a specific system, they were only a single transmission away. It actually got to the point where Vader intentionally refused help because he wanted at least somewhat of a challenge when he was carrying out the will of the Empire. Vader literally had too much power. And speaking of that, our fourth reason was that as Palpatine's fist, Vader got to fulfill his dreams of making the galaxy a stable society. As Anakin, he dreamed with Padme of being able to make things the way they wanted them, to override all of the politics and bureaucracy that weighed down the government's ability to instate peace. But as Vader, he had the power to enforce peace. Legions of white-knighted stormtroopers, armadas of star destroyers, the ability to issue a threat or a final judgment, and then carry it out with certainty. All of these things Vader had at his fingertips. Despite how it may seem, Vader actually cared about the Empire. It was pretty much the only thing that he had left. So in a way, he wanted to honor Padme's memory by carrying out what he had intended to do should she have joined him. Minus overthrowing Palpatine, of course. Vader truly believed that he was acting in the benefit of the galaxy. In Vader's opinion, the average citizen was too weak or stupid to protect and rule, so someone had to rule for them. The Senate was ineffectual and subject to corruption, but Palpatine was not. He was already corrupted by the dark side, which meant that he wasn't moved by anything else. The Dark Lord had all the money in the galaxy, so he could not be bought. He owned every system he desired, so he could not be bribed. He had the biggest army the galaxy had ever seen, and he was one of the strongest Sith that had ever lived, meaning he could not be intimidated. Vader respected all of these things because it meant that no slimy politician could ever poison the Empire and destroy it like they had the Republic. Before Luke, the Empire was the sole thing that Vader loved. This harkens back to the conversation that Anakin and Padme had on Naboo in Attack of the Clones. Anakin said that nothing was ever getting done in the galaxy because they needed people to sit down and talk about solutions to issues. Padme said that that's what they did, but people don't always agree on solutions. Anakin's response to this was a simple one: then they should be made to. And in the end, Anakin got this wish. As Vader, he made people make the right decision, even if his black-gloved fist was tightly fastened around their neck while they did it. But while these many benefits were great and all, even these have a difficult time covering the difficulties Vader faces while under Palpatine. We thought we'd go ahead and restate the actual emotional reasons why he didn't jump ship. After Padme died, Vader realized the ultimate trap of the dark side. It had used his fear to take everything and everyone away from him. Padme, Obi-Wan, his children, the Jedi. It was all gone. The only thing that remained was Palpatine, the man who had been rooting for him for a decade. Even if he was truly evil, He was the only thing left in Vader's life. Without Palpatine, Vader felt that he would be truly nothing and have nothing. If not for Sidious, he may as well die. The issue is, even though the Emperor was abusive, he gave Vader a purpose and a reason to keep going. In his position as the Empire's enforcer, he got to be a part of something larger. He got to at least feel like he was able to do what he always wanted to for the galaxy. But now, instead of having to worry about pleasing others, he got to please himself and do things his way for once. He both hated and needed Palpatine, which the Dark Lord of the Sith took full advantage of, just like the Sith yearn and need the dark side. So anyway, my friends, these were all the reasons we think Vader stayed loyal to Palpatine for so long. But tell us, do you think that there were other factors to consider? Or had you wondered yourself why Vader continued to put up with Sidious? Let us know in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.